Jamie, we thank you, because, and I hope you'll thank us at the end of the process.
Am I empty?
Yes, you are up.
I'm John Schultz. I live at Partridge Lake. I'm the president of the Partridge Lake Property Owners Association. I moved to Littleton permanently 3 years ago after retiring, and I ran a business that specialized in construction for hospitals, healthcare, kinds of things. So that's my background. I've been in that industry for 40 years.
Remember, John, and both those of you would have been at the budget meetings last year. John is the one who presented to us the Partridge Lake water quality evaluation update, and we'll hear more from him this fall when we get into that. But it sounds like progress is being made, which is also a good thing. I'm not sure. Yes, sir.
Excuse me.
Oh.
Yeah, we have Mary.
Oh.
I'm Mary Coleman.
Oh, sorry, Mary. Sorry.
I am the new school board member, so
Oh, okay.
my training wheels have not come off yet.
Yeah.
I am also the guidance instructor at Lisbon Regional School, been there 41 years, and thought I would try my hand on the other side of the table. So it's nice to meet everyone.
Good one. It's always nice to have somebody, obviously, you like diverse backgrounds, and people have certain life experiences that contribute to analyzing and understanding what we're doing. So,
I think it'd be wise to go around the table and introduce ourselves so the new people know who everyone.
well, sorry, that's right too. That's good point.
Yeah, we can start with Ann.
Hi, I'm Ann Wiggett. I'm chair of the Littleton School Board.
We got Mary.
Steve Niles, superintendent of schools.
John, introduce
Tom
himself.
Angles, business administrator at the school. Tim McMahon, resident of Littleton.
Ian Stearns, resident of Littleton. Budget committee.
And Diane Cummings, resident of Littleton.
And Steve Kelly, resident of Littleton. Been here this past June 1st for 45 years, and very happy of almost good enough to be local. Okay. I'm a little surprised that the town isn't here. I'm not really sure why that is, and for this to be the process it's supposed to be, obviously we're supposed to have the numbers from both sides so we can pull them all together on a piece of paper, but if in their absence, Tom, are you going to present as far as giving us a update or anything? Or?
I think Tom has something. Or Steve.
Well,
Go ahead, Tom, please. I'm texting Andrew.
Okay. You fellas want to sit next to each other? Would that help?
Nah, we spend enough time.
Yeah.
School board members will be showing up.
Okay.
A rather confusing document perhaps, but I think we should probably start with this. As some recall, the school calculation is a little, the timing is different than town calculation. We run on a fiscal year basis, July through June, rather than a calendar year basis as the town does.
I hope.
So after we do our budget and we're going to vote in March, do our annual reports on the basis of June. And then for September 1st, we have to revise our revenue estimates. And it's those revised revenue numbers that flow into the tax calculation.
And revenue numbers for what period, Tom? Just so.
It'll be for this fiscal year now, July of 19 through June of 20. So the first column shows the revenue that we had estimated when we prepared the budget. The second column shows the revisions that I made for September 1st. Just new information, other things that happened. Did not achieve some of our estimates in the prior year, so didn't want to inflate them for the new year. So the middle column says revised estimates is what was submitted to the Department of Revenue in September. Within the last couple of weeks, the state has passed their budget and signed off on it. Included in the budget were a number of initiatives to assist communities and the schools specifically. So the next column over, it says DOE estimate, with the exception of the first 50. We're expecting to get another $404,000 in adequacy aid, the education grant.
That's represented by that recent legislation that
Yes.
passed this summer. It's kicking in that quickly.
Yes, it was just signed off, 2 weeks ago. So all this will be calculated in the tax rate.
Now, that's an increased home, or that's the...
That's $404,000 of additional education grant aid money. So that's additional revenue
And
that I don't have to take from your pocket.
For this year.
Yes.
That's what you're
and the amount that we
That's what you're saying.
received prior to this,
I'm sorry?
the amount we were going to receive prior to this,
$3.4 million, and now we're looking at $3.8 million for that one line. Nothing is free.
oh no,
Because of the change in the adequacy aid calculation, we now get full credit for kindergarten kids, whereas previously we were getting half credit. But that means that we're no longer going to get the Keno garden aid. So that's what the $65,000 reduction is. It's all part of the adequacy aid calculation now.
so Keno has gone away as a direct receipt. It's obviously in the state budget, but they've taken Keno money.
And now those funds that we received are part of the adequacy aid. Okay, so it's part of that $400,000 increase. Special education aid used to be called catastrophic aid. There were some additional calculations with the state budget, some additional funding that's there. I do have to say that the $70,006 is still a soft number. The Department of Revenue doesn't usually allow us to take the numbers that the Department of Ed says they're going to give us. So that number will probably, or perhaps come down a little bit. Now, above that, under federal sources, I have a $50,000 reduction in Medicaid. Since the budget was prepared and this fiscal year has begun, we've recognized that not only have we not been receiving the Medicaid support that we had in prior years, the amount we've received has been going down, but there are some changes in legislation and changes in process, and right now we're completely locked out of filing Medicaid reimbursement. So at this point, I'm just saying, let's eliminate it completely. If we end up getting anything from it, it'll fall to fund balance out next year. I'm not depending on it for our revenue calculations.
And the reason for that is?
Some of it is legislative changes. One of the first pieces was the Medicaid expansion. We reduced the amounts that the Fed had to kick in. And we're the program that the Fed was funding rather than the state. So by expanding Medicaid, we got the Feds off the hook, which means we're not getting the money. Another piece is whether it's legislative changes or enforcement of the rules. There's some discussion now as to who actually can basically be prescribing the services that the kids are receiving. And that's all up in the air right now, and it actually has to be physician-based or another provider or something. So we're just completely locked out at this point. So that's why I pulled that out. I think it was a good opportunity to do that.
Coming up, it takes minutes.
This is sheet you're working off right?
Yes.
91A, you guys have got to take a minute.
So basically at the bottom, although I have reduced our estimate of the district revenue by $25,000. Also in the revised estimate calculation in September, we include fund balance from the prior fiscal year as being returned to reduce taxes. That's $134,000. I took out the $50,000 from the freeze on Medicaid, added in $410,000 from the budget legislation for a net increase of $469,554 of anticipated revenue, which is directly numbers that will not have to be raised for taxes. Because we have other sources now.
And in theory, if the budget were expended as anticipated or as structured, you'd end up with $469,000.
No, because I'm not going to raise those monies otherwise. This reduces the amount of tax,
Okay.
direct dollar for dollar, because I have an alternate source rather than you. I'm getting it from the state.
But this is the money that's going to be raised in
This fiscal year.
this fiscal year.
It does not increase my authority to spend.
Right.
My appropriation does not change. Unless we chose to have a special district meeting, and I don't know, I've not spoken with my board yet, but I don't anticipate a lot of clamoring for a special meeting to raise our appropriation.
So,
Technically, it's possible, but I don't expect
This
it.
is a maybe.
so the tax rate, just help me, it's been a long time since
Okay.
we've done all of this. So what the taxpayers appropriated last March does not include the new funding, the $404,000 and all of the things that you just outlined. So you cannot spend any more than what the taxpayers appropriated last March.
Right.
So this money would be seen as additional revenue, and it would have to go back to the taxpayers.
It's
Anyways.
another revenue source,
Okay.
so I don't have to raise as many tax dollars.
Okay, all right,
My authority to spend doesn't change.
okay.
It's
I
just a
see.
source of revenue.
So it's a little bit different than in the past when they had adequacy aid and we would receive more than we had anticipated. Okay, so this is an additional source.
And as I
Okay.
said, by zeroing out the Medicaid, just as an example, if I get $1, that will fund the fund balance,
Okay.
because I don't have any additional appropriation, so I can't use those funds. But all the money from the state just reduces the amount that I need to raise in tax locally.
So roughly speaking, Tom, this what you're showing us should have a, I'm going to say positive or negative impact, but roughly 50 cents on the tax dollar less.
Based on last year's assessed valuations, yes.
So this is the new aid, and then, I'm sorry, I was kind of bouncing around, so I probably didn't hear everything you were saying. So we also have year-end balance from
Yep,
last
that's
year, so
the
that was where?
134 that's in there.
134, okay,
Right.
all right. Thank you.
Steve, what's this year's equalized tax value, 2019 and 18?
I don't have it on me. Sorry.
No, okay. We always look to you, Karen, because you have most of those numbers in your pocket. I don't know, the figure that sticks in my head was $813,000. But
Yeah, I don't have.
813
It's just-
times,
You're trying to account for a 58-cent drop on 814 in equalized value in the town. That number is almost immaterial if that's the 18 number and we're setting a tax rate of 2019. The 2019 tax rate or tax evaluation for the townwide reevaluation is $865,000. That changes that 58 cents of a drop to a different number. That number needs to be known. That needs to be known before.
okay, so our value, are you saying when we completed our evaluation, Andrew, was 865?
No, I'm using it as a hypothetical. I'm saying that what you're being presented today is a 0.58 cent reduction, 58 cent reduction in your overall tax rate in comparison. But you're using 2018 townwide reevaluation, which is great for the purpose of the school because they ended their calendar year in 18-19. It makes sense. But what we need to hear from Karen, or maybe now that Andrew sat down, is what the 2019 equalized tax value is of the town of Littleton today. Otherwise, this discussion that Mr. Mangles is presenting isn't fair to a 58 cent drop.
No, not the 58 cents is just for relative purposes,
Yeah.
because you know what you paid last year.
You're right.
That was just a ballpark figure.
Yeah, I'm trying to help the budget committee get to the number, not.
And the significant thing is that I'm going to raise $470,000 less.
Yes, we get that, but to try to help the budget committee get to a number of a real in the next 3 weeks when the select board decides to how much they're gonna retain for their money. If they realize that you're bringing in 58 cents of a reduction to our overall tax rate, that should weigh heavy, Chad, on your mind that there's 58 cents coming back. So, Mr.
As a challenge art to match it, is that what you said?
Don't put words in my mouth. So let's see if we can get a number so we can get this
And that would
solid.
be, the equalized value would be with all the latest abatements and everything else.
You are correct.
Okay.
Well, we don't need the correction.
Right. That's what I would be using.
Right. So, like, for example, here, net valuation without utilities, you know, I don't think we have the equalization yet, because I don't think they do that until a little bit later, like equalized value. I think I'll look that up. But so net valuation without utilities last year was at 568 million, 39,281.
Yeah, that's not what I need.
This year is at 570 million, 540,698.
In fairness, that's not what I need because it should be more like, I think it's 821 or 823 to be exact. I can't tell you mathematically, I don't have that factually in front of me.
Because it's really hard to know if the utilities went up or down too. I mean, those have been like a yo-yo.
That affects the statewide education property tax.
It's like that.
It's important number of ways.
Pardon,
We
Tom?
don't,
The without
you don't need
utilities
the
affects the
equalized
statewide
valuation.
I need
education property
I need
tax.
the equalized valuation for the town of Littleton in the 2019 post all abatements.
Why are you using the term equalized though?
Because that's what we've always used. That's the number, that's
I
820.
thought equalized was what they did when they compared our numbers to other people's numbers.
And that's what your tax rate is set on, am I right, Colonel?
Yeah, they use that to calculate the tax rate on, yeah, I'm doing the actual mess on.
Andrew, you're going to
Yeah,
have
he
to
is.
speak up, please.
Yeah, I'll get the MS1 here.
Karen, you must have a good idea. Is it around this number at least?
It's lower than that because of the pilot for the what was Trans-Canada.
Okay.
Now, I am predicting the town rate to be reduced significantly. The school rate will be increased. The offsetting numbers, I believe, are not a large jump in the tax rate. And I am just reviewing it and talking with Jamie Dow on it at this time.
Yeah, so
Why are the school numbers going up?
Because the equalization rate goes down, because the dam is now a pilot, and the ratio changes. But the town rate goes down just about the same amount as the school goes up, other than the increases that were voted in last year. And I'm trying to get that information. Now, I also know that there's an amount you're keeping for fund balance for this year,
It's on the bottom of the page there.
200,000?
We're returning 134. The 134 is being taken to revenue.
Oh, so your 200,000 doesn't show on here?
No.
Okay.
See, Karen, this is why I raised the topic that I did when the pilot was being discussed. And I don't think anybody speaking, I think for myself at least, I don't think anybody was opposed to the concept of the pilot, but that was the question that I asked, was how those dollars that would have flown through via the school levy that no longer would be available because they're coming via the pilot, how those would be distributed. And my gut instinct, and Tom can verify this, was this is all going to come into the town. That's fine. But if it flows through the town's budget only, it's going to our new operating valuation is going to be $600 and some $million instead of $800 and some $million. And that would be the new reality in the tax rate needed to raise the dollars that we need would have to go up. While the towns went down and we were assured, no, that's not the case. It's going to be, you're going to get your share of the pilot and that will be reflected somehow in the tax. So that, remember, the board,
We all get told on occasion that this is a town and school rate. It's a combined rate that we need to collaborate together.
Sure.
And when we paid back the Trans-Canada bond, which I can't remember exact numbers, but I believe it was around 11.
6 million.
Well, it was $6 million bond, but we paid back a total of more than that because we had some money setting aside. The school didn't get affected by that at all. The town did. The town has to make payments on that. Luckily, it's going to be paid off in 2020. So the school never had to absorb that $400,000 payment over many, many years. This way of doing the pilot, there is some stabilization to this. Because we're not having to worry about going to VTLA or having a court case.
No, I'm not arguing that it was a good deal or a bad deal. What I'm arguing is that it artificially raises the school's tax levy. And Tom and I are talking about this today. Your average person, they look at the tax rate. Hopefully they look at the bill, all the amount of taxes they're paying to support the school level effort, and that will be a good thing. But if they look purely at the tax rate, 22% increase is over $3.
So you're saying...
Coincidentally, that's about what Lakewood would cost, but that's another topic. This in effect, makes it very difficult to do other things.
So what was means, so if the town goes up 22%, excuse me, the school goes up 22%, the town's gonna come down roughly 12%?
I
44.
predict.
Huh?
Probably more like
I
30.
predict more.
Yeah, it's gonna be in the 30s.
Oh, okay. I'm doing my ratio
Just because of the
wrong.
ratio.
Yeah, I'm probably doing it upside down.
Yeah, it's the other way, it goes the other way.
But anyway, yeah, okay, so it's actually gonna go down more to realize the same number of dollars.
I don't know if it's exactly the same number of dollars.
But
Overall, my picture, and this is just draft at this point, please, because I need to review the revenues with DRA, need to review the numbers with DRA as far as the MS1 goes. I'm estimating between county, school, state school, town, and what am I missing?
County, town, state school, they've got all,
Yeah.
you're good point.
I'm ballpark thinking the tax rate may increase $1.25, $1.50 per thousand. And that's with all of those budgets combined. But there is an increase in the county,
the overall tax.
the overall tax.
Rates. At some point, you do need to separate the number of dollars on your tax bill. The rates are going to look
But
completely
the
different.
rate per thousand.
Per thousand. And that is a draft estimate at this
And
point.
is that only on the town?
That's everything.
So
Everything.
like towns would be going down, so this is going up.
For argument purposes, is it safe to use the 640 million that you gave me? Karen?
So the net valuation is 640 million, 657, 398.
So based on that number, the school rate would be $14.60. And I'm raising $400,000 less.
And keeping 200.
That's a $3.12 increase on the rate.
And this is
And
the
I'm
first
raising
time you're
$400
learning about
less.
that, right now.
Well, we suspected that there was going to be something like that, and the selectmen were told no.
Well, the taxpayer takes the hit.
So what is the 640 figure then? 640
You gotta do
is the...
something about it.
The
Valuation.
net valuation, so that's what you would plug into a
Okay, because
spreadsheet.
there's not gonna be a gross valuation including the dam now? Is that, no?
That is included as part of it. I think that, maybe just to clarify things.
Yeah,
So
well-
we've got, it is.
There's money.
So we do have a call at the RA to see if there's like something like, are there other alternatives? Would the board want to entertain that?
MOU that sets aside the equivalent amount of, percentage of pilot based on where it was at before and offset school taxes, just so I could explore different options. I don't know what the board would not want to do. But basically, what we have, we're getting more money from the dam than we did previously, right? It's removed from valuation, from the total valuation of the town. There's an imputed value. You can backtrack it and figure out what the value would have been.
And that imputed value is?
It's like somewhere between 100 and maybe
And 200.
100 to 100 million. And there's also 2 kicker payments in there that could come into play, which are additional payments that come in later. But we're in a really good position, I think, with our value. But it's just that, like Tom and Steve said, the way that it's interpreted on the MS1 is that since the valuation is decreased, they're raising, even if they weren't raising the budget this year, it would show an increase in the tax rate because that's off of the books. Whereas in the pilot payment to the town, that's showing a revenue to the town.
So obviously this is, I mean, I'm talking about us understanding it. I'm talking about John Q. Citizen getting his tax bill in December and understanding it. I mean, they're gonna look at that and they aren't all gonna get out their last bill per se, but some of those numbers are gonna be confusing at best and distressing at worst.
Right. I mean, theoretically, if all things remain the same, you would see a flat tax rate based on the pilot, or actually
Not the rate, the dollars.
because they're paying in. They're paying in. And all that comes in. The town's reduced tax rate, the school's expenditures, the county's expenditures, and the state school are increasing enough that it's going to be $1.25 on tax rate.
Because of what we passed last March, is that what you're saying?
Some of what you passed last March, the county rate has gone up. The state local school looks like that has gone up slightly, not a large jump.
What's the tax rate today in 2018?
23.10.
1156 times 2.
Oh, you want the town?
Total. She's telling us it's going up to $1.25 to $1.50 total.
2312.
12. Yeah.
We're at 2312 and you're anticipating it may go up $1.50.
High end, I'm estimating $1.50.
So I guess in my mind, I'm having a hard time understanding how, what would appear to have been a good year, that we're gonna have a $1.25 increase.
So $653,000 buys $1 on the tax rate?
No.
How much?
12.5 cents is $1, right?
No.
Yeah. I believe you're right.
Okay, now, let's just use 650 as an even number. 650 buys me $1. How much do you have in overlay?
You want to know what the town has?
Please and thank you.
Rough estimate, probably 300 to 400,000.
Okay, they're keeping 200. There's my $1.
Okay, the 340 in overlay, you're not asking surplus, are you?
Overlay, ability to use that money for emergency situations. Neither one of these 8 people that are elected are gonna like it, but 3,000 taxpayers are gonna love it.
So,
Okay, but you're talking overlay. Overlay is for
Overlay
tax,
is
for tax
the
rate.
taxes that were raised and appropriated and unused and then put into retention funds.
No. Is an overlay?
Overlay is for
tax
abatements.
abatement. Okay.
so you have to keep a
Fund balance, sorry,
Yeah,
wrong
so
word.
fund
balance.
Sorry, wrong word.
And
Fund
again,
balance.
it's about 300 to 400,000.
And these guys are sitting and taking 2. So I'm back to my $500,000 to buy myself down by $1 by not retaining the taxation and returning it back to the taxpayers in order to reduce this one-time $1.25 to $1.50.
Can you give us an estimate of when we are going to set the tax rate with Jamie Dow? Do you know? Have any idea?
She's scheduled.
I haven't got her scheduled, but it's all done now online. It's just phone calls back and forth. She needs to confirm the revenues with me and go through them one more time. I need to talk to somebody at DRA about the MS1 because there was a question came in. I have been tied up all day, so I haven't got back to them. So I'm hoping we will have a tax rate. The latest, I really hope is November 1st.
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here, okay? So, a couple years back, we had a warrant article that the voters passed, that we all sit down at the table together to talk about talk about the tax rate, talk about everything, all of the revenues, everything, prior to when the tax rate is set at the state level. I am anticipating that the school board is a little bit caught deer in headlights with all of this going up and going down. Am I correct on that?
Yes and no. We talked about it a long time and it was possible.
We talked about it, but I think what we had said in the warrant article, what the voters or whoever placed the warrant article on the ballot and the voters approved it, that we'd all sit down and talk about it just prior, so we all would be aware. Because now we have someone saying, questioning the retention of $200,000. We have, it's going to catch the taxpayers by surprise. They're not going to understand, and I understand their concern, the school's concern about having their tax rate go up. So can we sit down? Do you want to sit down, Madam Chairman down there? Do you want to sit down and look at these numbers together again? Or, because we don't have the actual numbers in front of us tonight.
On the town side.
On the town side.
Yeah.
It'd be nice, to get some clarification.
I know, but I just want that so everyone understands what's going on, because it's hard to grasp without having the numbers in front of us. It's hard to grasp. It is.
We would know something different.
So I don't know, I mean,
One question I have to ask is during all the warrant process, was there expected at the deliberative session, I know we presented that there was going to be an expected increase in the tax rate for the town side, for our warrant articles. I've also asked the school if they could give me what they expected for an increase with all of their warrant articles, because they had a budget. They also have union negotiations that got approved. So I'm trying to get a number of what was expected at the deliberative session as an increase to the tax rate.
and I think we need to have all of that in front of us. And you're right, we need to have that, but there's been other things, situations that's kind of rolling in. I just want people to understand how everything is being processed. And without the numbers in front of us, I think it's difficult for us to understand, school board members to understand, and those sitting around this table to understand. So if we could, I don't know if you want to get together, I don't know if it's necessary. Am I barking up the wrong tree here? I have no idea.
Well, no, I mean, obviously, you know, most of us in this room are way more better informed than the average citizen, just because of the connections we have, the daily interactions, whatever. And if we're taken back by these numbers, the 20 of us or so that are here, you can imagine, you know, what the guy or gal or whatever working on Main Street or Burnby or wherever else, you know, they're going to see something there. One, they're not going to understand it. And
we've had a lot of moving parts here. We have a pilot that just went into effect. We have a different source of revenue on the school side. It's, you know, it's just hard to understand. So if we could figure out how we can present it in a way that...
But one thing we definitely need to explain, we need to explain how the town evaluation went from 8+ to 650 and how we're actually getting more tax revenue. Or revenue, not tax revenue, I guess, they may call it tax revenue. I mean, we need to, certainly need to be able to understand that. I mean, otherwise...
So how much, what was the value of the dam that is now taken off?
$177,219,800.
So that has been removed from the tax,
From the valuation.
from the valuation.
Yeah.
Help me with my terms here.
Yeah.
With the evaluation. So that's been removed because now we have a pilot. And even though the pilot, the dam is now paying us more taxes, even on the value of $177 million, we're receiving more taxes, right, from them. They've agreed to pay a higher amount, am I right?
It's a higher imputed value,
Okay.
even as the market declines, or the energy, Tom Considine probably one of the best people locally to explain it. But there's a group who sets utility rates and electricity prices in the future, and our valuation is always based on, I think, a thing called cost regression analysis. And so even as that number declines, we're now fixed at a higher imputed value that stays put for 5 years.
So so that's part of our utilities. So what else is included in our utility?
So
Base.
I could give you a list of those properties, but I mean, it includes transmission lines, it includes substations, it includes pretty much any utility asset in the town except for what's owned by Littleton Water and Light.
Other than, did you say other than?
Other
Okay.
than Littleton Water and Light.
Yeah.
Right, but this agreement just applies to the new TransCanada.
Great, yeah,
Yeah.
Great River Hydro.
Right.
Yeah.
What's owned by co-op or
Right.
public service, now Eversource, that's still being taxed and valued under the old format?
Yeah, except for I mean, that's always in dispute too. I mean, they file an abatement every year, so we're always fighting that and going through different settlements or court cases. So, I mean, and the legislator also is always trying to take a bite at it through probably lobbyists from those utilities. But yeah, those are all still there. And,
So the amount of revenue, anticipated revenue over the next 5 years associated with this $177 million is how much a year?
$4,056,780. Am I close?
Well, you're close.
Yeah. Yeah. 4,600,000. 4,067,000. Do you have it right there?
I don't
Oh,
have
okay.
it right here.
Yeah.
I have a combination total.
But that figure is going to be adjusted somewhat by some other formula over the next 5 years, but the idea is that it's going to stay.
Oh, so that's the base, and so what can happen is the Great River Hydro is considering a couple of other upgrades at the facility itself. For example, a low flow generator. And so if they do that, then I believe it's an additional $100,000 payment would kick in each year for the duration of that agreement.
Okay, so the 4,056,000 or 60,000,
Yeah,
that's,
4,100,000.
but that's the base payment that's anticipated per year for the next 5 years. 2019 being the first year.
Right. Yeah,
And that wasn't supposed to kick in though until the first 5 years. That isn't going to kick into 5 years into it. The first 4 years, you won't see that $100,000 at all, because they didn't even get the drawing puts on the plans for it.
I don't know if I agree with that, but.
Right, but the 4,060,000 roughly, that is the current good number for this year and the 4 years moving forward.
Right, and you'll see that on the ENS1, you'll also see that through that which comes out through the tax calculation. So, I mean, there's confusion with it, it's like, is it, does it increase the schools and decrease the towns and all that? Right now, the way it is, yes, it does that, it's a net zero, pretty much a net zero approach. What are the schools going out to town?
Other than the fucking border, but yes.
Well, that's not part of that. Yeah, that's-
I know, but
that's all.
that just kind of mitigates
Right,
the
yeah.
situation. But I can understand Steve's point, obviously, is that, I mean, it has to be well explained, because if all that revenue is coming in on one side.
Absolutely. And I see that, and I can totally am sympathetic. And, I think that with Karen's point, I'm sympathetic. She was here when the opposite was true, where, the school got all the tax money that they did out of the.
And didn't have to pay it back.
Yeah, and didn't have to pay it back.
Yeah.
And the town side did, and the town received major budget cuts that, we're still kind of feeling today, so.
I think my objection is that we raised this question back in April. And it seemed like this is how it was going to come down. And we were told, no, it's going to be proportional, don't worry about it. I was out of town, unfortunately, I couldn't go to the select board meeting the night that it was finalized. I went to the public hearing that day, and when I heard that, the alarm bells went off a little bit. My board members, some of whom I know did go to that meeting, I discussed it at length with the board. my concerns, but we were said, no, don't worry, it's not gonna work that way. And, you know, that's my disappointment, that we were told one thing, and what I thought was gonna happen is exactly what's gonna happen, and it's, it's very disappointing.
And I would say,
Extremely disappointing.
I have calls in the Department of Revenue Administration to see if there's ways to mitigate it, but really, it's just numbers on paper. And I think that if we didn't do a pilot based on that, I think it would be not the best interest of the taxpayers or the community.
Maybe, I just wish we could have all the facts on the table, that's all. And the impact it had on the two main taxing entities. I don't think that was fair.
Go ahead, Karen.
I found out last week, which I only briefly talked with Andrew about because I've been tied up today with other people at the office. The town is getting some additional money from the state. And I believe the school is supposed to be getting some too. I don't know exactly what theirs are, but I know the town is supposed to be getting, and I haven't even talked to the selectmen about it because I haven't talked to Andrew. It's about $122,000, which would be helpful.
Is highway block?
No. It used to be called shared revenue, and they're bringing this back at this point, just this one year. We got a calculation for it, and we got about $122,000 in revenues that we were not expecting. So when we get ready to adjust the tax rate, and depending on what the selectmen want to do with that, will depend on whether our rate will be reduced further.
Okay, so I am totally confused, okay? I think everyone is. So just going back to like last year when we were bringing this to the voters, and how much did we think the taxes were going to go up at using those numbers that we had at that time? Do you remember, Steve? Can you look that up?
The total was $9.8 million for the school.
Okay, and so how much was that?
That's what shows down there.
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Okay, and
It's not a whole lot.
And this is what I'm raising now.
It's our general fund budget and our warrant articles, everything else. Nothing else.
And the warrant article failed. I would have raised some money.
yeah,
Well, we did-
so
we did
9
do
point,
that.
so how much was it going to increase? Did we anticipate?
Let me look. Of course, that was based on the only evaluation we had to use, only thing we had available at that time. And before we even knew anything about pilots.
Right, I'm just trying, because we're anticipating a
I
$1.50
can
now. I
imagine.
just kind of want to back up and see where we
I
were.
can tell you what we said at the delivery session.
And on the town side, do you remember?
Andrew's looking it up, I believe.
Karen, just to clarify, so your working numbers we have now is both for overlay and surplus. Both of those numbers falling between 300,000 and 400,000. And on the surplus side, 500,000 is still our target that we want to
We
get.
likely, yes. That's enough to get through at least
Cash
one
flow
accounts
line.
payable
Yeah.
without taking it in.
May I ask what percentage that represents?
It's a lot lower than 3.
Yeah. Doesn't the LA have guidelines?
Oh, yes. they
The
did.
guidelines are 8%.
At a dollar increase in the tax rate, how much revenue does that bring in additional on behalf of taxpayers?
So is it $650,000? Is that what we're saying now?
650,000? My personal opinion is that we should be going in a lawsuit against Sanssouci. Sanssouci in turn pushed this thing into us and did it. And the town of Littleton in turn should be suing Sanssouci for coming up and telling us that this is what it was going to be and a great thing and stuff like that.
Just to clarify, the pilot is pretty much net neutral. It does not, this is not the increase of $1.20, this is not any of that. We're getting the revenue coming in a different way than just calling it a valuation. So There's,
Oh, I know, you got revenue, I mean, coming in from the state and where, you got revenue coming in over here, but it's still gonna cost, you're still gonna be short from all the people, 600 and some odd $1,000.
I'm saying that's separate, anything is separate from the pilot, that's what I'm saying, any of that discussion.
It's probably premature as uncertain as we may be at this point in time, it was probably would be premature at this point in time to say that it was a bad deal or a misguided deal. I think the proof will be, you know, in the next 5 years how it works out, and the real proof would be when we get to the end of the 5-year plan, how it gets renewed, extended.
Well, you may have a problem if you don't check the litigation. You may have a statute of limitations could be running out on the thing. You can't just say 5 years
Well,
down the
no,
road.
and
So
yes, I
it
don't-
may only be 3 years. But consequently, Sam Susi was the one that put this together. I walked out of the room and I told him, I hoped that he had a lot of E&O insurance out of the thing on it because of what he told the people. It's not a thing.
We have reviewed it, but the proof shows that it's already a good deal.
A good deal for who?
For the taxpayers, all the school rate, town rate.
You're not a citizen of
Take it all,
Lowell.
take it all, come
You're
on.
not a citizen of Lowell.
Nobody is down there.
If you run the cost regression analysis, which he has done, to see if it was a good deal, it is a good deal.
Okay.
Sell the time.
But the test is really going to be at the end of 5 years when we get to phase 2. That was my concern, was making sure that changing this format or this philosophy, that we weren't setting ourselves up for, you know, because always, anytime you have a deal, both parties like to think that the deal is going to work for them.
Some risk.
Well, yeah, it'll be minimum risk and more of the gain, but if, you know, they expect it to be a better deal, why would they be willing to pay more money if they thought ultimately it was going to be a better deal for them? And for us, if we thought this was a better deal now, I'm sure it's going to be a better deal into the future. But I think the proof will be in the pudding, if you would, once the renewal, once we get to that point, well, that'll tell us.
And I mean, there's a number of factors, not just value, but the expense, the court expense of having an appeal every year, also the expense of attorneys that and different experts that it takes to do.
And you're forgetting to mention the $600,000 more that's got to come out of people's pockets.
Yeah, but I understand, but that has nothing to do with
That, there's nothing to do with
this.
this.
I mean, that would still be
It's got to
something.
do with the fact that you're spending more money or something else on it when you're spending and asking the people to put in $600,000 of more money in the thing on it. Somebody's got to be paying that. So it's not either that or the school's got to drop their expenses and the town's got to drop their expenses to come back to a neutral price.
But every year at town meeting, the voting public of Littleton is very generous. But there is a bill that comes with that generosity. This is usually when that bill shows up, so.
So do either of you gentlemen have the numbers?
I do.
Okay.
Operating budget, this is based on a valuation of $814,610,881, which we know, of course, is not the case anymore. The operating budget was projected to cause a 23-cent increase in the operating, or 23-cent tax increase. The collective bargaining agreement year one was projected to create a 15-cent increase. So it was a 38 total. Based on 814, 16, 881.
How much was that again total?
38 cents.
38 cents. This is what we presented to the deliberative session.
And we,
Instead, with the additional revenue at that same valuation, it's a 58-cent reduction.
One more time, Tom?
With the additional revenue from the state budget,
Yeah.
on that same last year's valuation, it represents a 58-cent reduction rather than a 38.
So that's 20 cents reduction?
No, I'm saying is,
58 cents,
From
38 plus 58.
Steve, if there's a warrant article, he's saying, what did we check off for warrant articles when we voted? We voted on 2 warrant articles, one costing us 23 cents per 1,000 more, and one costing us 15 cents. Mr. Mengels is saying if there was another box that we could check off to say, would you accept this $400,000 of new unfounded revenue from the state, it would drop it down to 58 cents, which is what Mr. Mengels is presenting to you with the wrong town-wide reevaluation, which he wasn't informed of. So in fairness to Mr. Mengels, he's trying to explain to you that what you voted on, if that was given on that day, would have been $400,000 or 58 cents. So the school is trying to take credit, which in their mind, mathematically, they are correct, of a 58-cent reduction in overall need of cash. But now the bar has been changed on them, unbeknownst to them, and they show up to present to the budget committee and say, oh, by the way, that townwide reevaluation has changed. That $400,000 was nice for you to take account for, but no more credit for that. And oh, the $200,000 you get to keep, you're gonna fight about trying to get back in order to not look as bad as you do. Does that make sense? That's a snapshot of what just happened today.
Actually, it does.
And honestly, the two entities can disagree of hire people, but this is actually how it breaks down, which is what matters to me. To the rest of you, it's a different story because you guys are looking at a different number. But if you take a home of $150,000, okay, the equalized value of the value of the home is $150,000. That person was paying $23.10 per thousand. Is the current Littleton tax rate posted on the town website? They would have paid $3,468 in total taxes. They would have made their first payment in June of 1734. Respectfully, the same payment in December, but now the rate goes up. So now they've got to come up with $1,846.50 instead of $1,734, plus another $112 for the short payment that they didn't make because there's an increase in the tax rate. So now they're coming up with, at Christmas time, $1,958 instead of $1,734 on a $150,000 home, which is about a 6% increase. So today, what you're informing people about is that come December, they, on a 38-cent school side of an increase, what they voted for, I'm yet to hear from you, Andrew, what you're telling me the total check boxes I could check off for spending equal, I bet it doesn't equal $1.25 or $1.50 per thousand.
Do you want me to answer?
Please.
We expected a 40-cent per $1,000 increase.
A 40.
40
So on
cents.
78 cents, that's a far cry from $1.25 to $1.50. So in fairness to the taxpayer, the person going into the booth and voting on the second Tuesday in March, they're going down and saying, yeah, I can afford that, yeah, I can afford that, I like that, I want that, that means something to me. But now come December, and those are for the people, remind you, who pay their tax bill non-escrow. The people who pay their taxes escrow don't realize it now, folks, until April of 2020. So now you guys, all of you 8 people who are very kind for doing this job, thank you very much. You're going to go and develop warrant articles that we're going to go back and vote on again. And people are going to watch this and say, well, my tax bill didn't go up, my mortgage is the same. Well, come April, after they spent again, and you guys stick to the vote once more. Yeah, so cumulatively, they realize that in May, and they get told, oh, well, you can make up that payment, and they're going, wait a minute, what just happened? I didn't. So you can see the dilemma here and the attention to detail that needs to be paid. And in fairness, I don't think I should say this in public, I don't think I possibly can. The school board did their job. I mean, they brought together their numbers. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's hard for me to say that, actually.
Okay, so
I felt the pain.
all right, so getting back to the question, initially, as you were posing it, so if the school was anticipating a 38-cent tax increase.
Correct.
And the town was anticipating a 40-cent tax rate, how did the 78 cents translate to $1.25?
Well, I think that's, go ahead.
Please understand that the county rate has also increased, and I can't access that.
County rate's $1.49 today. What do you?
It was $2.09, I think, is what they were giving it.
Okay, so you're going from $1.49 to $2.09 on the county.
Well,
because the county's currently $1.49. That's posted as the 18 on your town website.
Now I'm trying to get in, but I can't get into my system
Okay.
here on Andrew's computer because it's locking me out. So I'm giving you an estimate, and that is setting aside some overlay money. And I have to take a look at that overlay money when we get ready to set the tax rate.
How much was your overlay last year?
Last year it was $250,000.
And you're anticipating?
I'm anticipating between $300,000 and $400,000. And that's a high estimate. It could end up being $250,000.
No, if it was at 250, your tax rate would drop down.
Yes, it would. And then if you factor in, and if the selectmen decide to use this money that's coming in from the state, the additional money, that would help offset some of the tax rate as well.
What do you
Like
think
I
the
said,
school?
this is preliminary because I haven't even talked to Andrew about this.
What do you think the state school went to? Was it 209?
That was the 209.
Okay, so we're currently at 209, so it stayed the same? Is what you're thinking?
I don't know, I haven't seen.
Okay.
It's very close, it's within pennies.
Okay.
So are you able, or can you share with us an MS1 that you have, or can you send that out to us, or do you have to, I know it's a draft, so to speak, at this point. Is it a draft at this point?
No, I think the board has executed it now.
But the
The board
DRA
has-
hasn't confirmed it yet.
Right, so it's,
So it's still kind of a draft?
right.
So is that possible to share that with us, or would you like to not share that with us
Share.
until it's, can you share that?
Yeah, I would be surprised if the DRA had much, if any, change to it. I
I
think
won't know
historically
until
they
I
had,
talk to them.
yeah.
But, so if we could get a copy of that and we can send it out to everyone, maybe these numbers will start to gel in our mind a little bit more. So, do
Just
you
to
mind?
revisit so what was your answer to Artie about the county and the state?
There is an
school
increase with the county, and I know there's an increase in the state.
Okay.
The state education is a very minor penny or 2 penny difference. The county, I can't remember exactly what it is,
But it's
but I
substantial.
believe it's at least $100,000 on their budget from the previous year.
As our portion.
Is an additional.
Our portion of it, right?
And this is an estimate, without looking at my documents.
No, Karen,
I
I know
can't give
that.
you exactly, and it bothers me not to.
No, I know that, but you always have very good command, and we always appreciate you giving us your best gut feel for it. But I mean, but with our new numbers, obviously, at $650,000 valuation, $100,000 is 13 cents on the tax rate, right? Yeah. I'm just trying to put the numbers together to come up with the 125.
Well,
That
so,
area.
yeah, I'd say, you can pretty much take that portion, because there's this huge spreadsheet that we use, right, where valuation is one component, but that pilot payment is gonna come back in to offset the difference of last year's valuation to this one. We still have a slight increase in valuation, so to think that $1.25 is somehow part of this pilot. is-
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm just trying to,
It just seems like it was-
where the $1.25 came from.
Right.
I mean, we need to know that. I mean, based on what you told us and the school has told us, I mean, that we know roughly 38 cents is what the school anticipated, 40 cents is what the town anticipated, so it's 78 cents.
And we have additional revenues, and so we're all kind of saying,
And I
hey,
think we're really having a really preliminary discussion based on just the DRA calendar with setting our tax rate right now.
Yeah.
And understanding what the additional revenue, offsetting the pilot's gonna do, just to stress that, I think that being overplayed.
Well, to Steve's point, obviously, to be fair about this, we need to come up with a way of explaining this, and I'm not sure if it's actually moving money or whatever, but I mean,
Right.
but to be fair about it, we get, we need the populace of Littleton to feel comfortable with this. They need to understand and feel comfortable with what's happened and why. And that's why it isn't fair to the school to make them look bad, if you would. Just because people are gonna look at that number and say, well, last year was this, and, these towns did a great job with the school do well. We need to address that.
Sure. And, the same being true, if, let's say we have a settlement with PSNH and it's a significant thing, just like what happened with Great River Hydro, I would expect the same, where the town has been holding a $500,000 debt a year for a decade. Those are trucks we couldn't buy. Those are staff that we laid off.
Right.
There's a roads that we couldn't pave and sewers that had issues. And we've been holding that for a decade. And that's something that we inherited, and I think that, having the school doing the same thing to explain that, those kind of things will come up in the future. So.
And truthfully, for those of us who were around at that time, I don't think that was adequately explained at the time either. I mean, we know we voted on the bond, but I don't think at the time that anybody went to the point of saying the town is going to absorb all of this, and the school is 2/3 of our expenses, and nobody said that the school really should be responsible for 2/3 of this. I don't think that was ever said. I mean, that came up as discussion, but I think it came up several years later when somebody said, oh, by the way, remember, this happened.
It would be nice with every abatement if portions could be divided out.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I think it's just not the way it is. The state really regulates how everything is done. We're really political subdivision to the state.
And that's what we were saying back in April.
Yeah.
And that was what was going to be, and we were told, no, no, no. And,
So.
yeah, we knew this was coming.
Part of the reason that I always like to have this type of discussion on the first meeting is just so we don't, well, I hope we didn't frighten you guys off from this. But we're actually in the budget process right now. And, this is really important information. And not that I want to set a cap on everybody, but, we can't just go in and start creating our own budgets without being aware of all of this information or what the other side is doing and what the other side needs. So I don't know how you want to address that. I don't think we have hard numbers now to really understand where we are as a beginning point. Millie, do you have an understanding of that?
It's preliminary right now.
It's very preliminary, and the one thing I really hate to do is, because I've been on the side of the school board trying to figure out a budget and then having to cut $400,000 at the end, it's just not fun. And as a budget committee member, as much as I would like to have everything out on the table and we hear everything, I don't want to be the one that says, oh, we need to cut $300,000. This truck is worth $250,000, so let's cut that one, and it might be the most important piece of equipment that the town needs, or vice versa on the school. So I don't want to be placed in that position. So somehow we need to kind of have a formula or a plan going forward here, so everyone is aware of what's going on totally, town and school. So figure it out for me. I mean, that's part of the reason why we're here, just so we all totally understand where we're starting from. And I don't think we have that understanding right now, so.
Is there a precedent? I mean, this isn't the first year you've done this, so.
No, it isn't, unfortunately. Well, we've kind of gone a variety of paths, and at one time when the budget committee was really beginning, that we had 3 selectmen who basically told us what the tax base was going to be and what all the other, they had a broader sense of information than the school at the time. And everyone would sit down around the table, the school and the town, and they would say, this is what it is, and can we try to maintain a 1%, 2%? It depended on how much the tax base grew or didn't grow. And I don't think we've done that in the last couple of years at all. We kind of had a sense, but everyone has developed their budgets, and then at the end, it's kind of like, you got to pull back, you got to do this. And then people say to the budget committee, we want to know what you think we should do. And I'm going, I don't know which piece of equipment you need more than
That's advisory only. You're advisory budget committee.
We're advisory,
So
but
they
asked.
advise it,
Yeah.
and we try to support it, John, and then they can advise cut the budget by this amount of money. Then it's up to us where we're going to cut it, each town and school. So the advisory board, you're the first year, so the advisory board gives us all of this direction of what they feel after many meetings. And we usually agree, and they sign off on it, and we do the best we can, and that's put on the warrant, whether or not it's supported by the advisory board.
But then,
Budget committee, I mean, sorry.
But the budget committee will then go down the warrant articles and say yay, nay, and on the town side, it's more equipment driven and more warrant articles on the town side, and that's when we go yay, nay, and nay, and that's the part that I don't particularly care to prioritize for them. If you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quick question. When was the townwide reevaluation implemented? What year?
Just last year.
You did a
We did a statistical last year.
So
Yeah.
last year, so in the 2018 tax year,
We had a 2015, I think it was full revow. And
Yeah,
then a
so it was-
18.
So in 2018, some of us went up about 10% in the value of our homes, and we went up a percentage that I can't recall off the tip of my tongue in rate. So we increased, because for those of us that went up, we had a slight increase in our rate, but a big increase in our value for some of us. Some went down, okay?
Tax rate.
So,
Tax rate was down from 25 something to 2310.
so call it, my increase is 10% on my value, went up. Valuation, 10% increase in value. Now you're raising the rate by 6% a year later. So in 24 months, you've raised me 16% on my home. Am I correct? If I went from a home and I had a 10% increase in my evaluation, and this year you're giving me a 6% increase in my rate,
Well, I don't know what it's going to be because I have to look at the.
we're asking, we're using her 125 to 150, and we're at 2310. Those are numbers we've talked about all so far. So I'm 16% in 24 months. Where I'm going with this is to what Diane was just saying is what is the sustainable number and what do you use to go forward? If it's 16% in 24 months, you can't go further. You can't keep doing that, right? You just can't keep 16% every 24 months. You can't. That's a
I think, we have to look at it. Every case is different. I mean, the tax rate did go down. I think it went down by, what was it, $1 something last year, down to 2310. Valuation depends on, that's all, depends. Some people did go down significantly, and a lot of people stayed the same. So it seemed like
But for us that went up,
something went up.
we paid more in value again, and now we're paying more in rate. And it's cumulative, right? Because we're paying that rate on more value, right? Because if the home went from 100,000 to 150,000, and I'm paying more in rate, I'm paying on that $50,000 difference in rate. So that's what I'm trying to say. When Diane asked what that number is, I think you need to be cognizant, and I think some of the things you should share with the budget committee is what is the percentage of the town that went up, and what is sustainable in your residential home community to pay more? How much more is there in the home, and what is the average home? So these guys can calculate what's sustainable. That's where she's trying to get to. Sorry.
You said it was revalued, though, was done in 18 or 17?
I think it was 18, was it?
It is statistical.
Statistical rebound 18.
But there's only...
So you got 4 years left before it goes again. It's a
Townwide.
requirement that you have to do it every 5 years.
Or if the, I think it's the coefficient dispersion or the, there's a formula. If you kick into that, then you can do it again too. If you, just like if the market. If you're under or over. Yeah.
If your percent of valuation changes,
Yeah, you're,
puts you outside the 10% or whatever.
right. If the market's hot and continued to rise, then we could end up with a.
But Andrew, don't we do a quarter of the town every year anyway in a fashion?
Well, that was under our current contract. We did that on purpose. Like, so your last one, 2015, I think they did a town-wide appraisal all in 1 year, right? And so what we did was take instead of doing it all 1 year, we did it over the 5-year portion of the contract. So a quarter of the parcels were looked at each year, and in the 5th year, a statistical reval was going to be done. So we're still moving in that contract. We kind of got triggered to do a statistical midway through.
Before the
Yeah,
fact.
so I'd have to look. I don't think we've even finished the full 4-year portion of looking through. So there's still things that are happening. I know next year, for example, there's also special purpose properties that have to be looked at. So things like commercial properties in C1, mainly Meadow Street area, and then certain special purpose properties that are considered industrial also have to be looked at. So there'll be valuation increases there. Also, with the economic development projects that are happening, we'll see things like the urgent care and other things that potentially could be completed before April 1st.
Karen, did you have something?
Well, I just want to remind you that that is just a draft.
Right.
And I looked at kind of worst case scenario. I haven't factored in the extra revenues that the school is bringing up. I haven't factored in that extra revenue and reviewed the revenues yet with JDAP. So I'm looking at worst case scenario.
Okay, so
So it's just a draft.
it is a draft, but the point of this meeting here is to kind of launch us going forward. So, and also to uphold the warrant article that was passed several years ago, to understand how we're going to set the tax rate. So where do we go from here? So we know what we're looking at. We're upholding that warrant article. Do we have another meeting? Do we require another meeting? I know no one wants another meeting, but we totally don't understand anything at this point. So what are the heads thinking here?
I think,
Talking heads.
The talking heads.
yeah, our chairman, he's not here, but I know he'd be available to meet again. School wants to just set something up.
Do you think all?
I don't know what you said.
Yes.
Well, anyway, I think that,
Yes, we need more information than we got tonight.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
And it's a waste of our
You guys are gonna meet him next week.
information.
well,
I
well,
think a lot of this talk is really preliminary until we have.
Well, I know that, but this has been on the dockets for about 2 weeks now, Andrew.
The Department of Revenue Administration is the one that we have to wait
I
for
understand.
information. So what I'm telling you is, because we are in a calendar year, we're in a different world, we have a timeline that is really difficult to be able, and we're still, we just passed our third quarter, so even, looking at year to date, and we understand some seasonality of revenues and expenditures, but it's a different situation than if we're in the July 1. And the time crunch is different.
Can I just ask, because we have other business before us tonight. I think you're going to bring us year-to-date for this current budget, and you may have some more information that you want to share. Could you, Andrew, Steve, and Steve, can you figure this out for us and get back to us on that?
I think we certainly should have a meeting with the hardest numbers we can have.
Right.
So that obviously, once the tax rate is set, we all feel comfortable with how it was set, that it wasn't set in a vacuum, and that at least we have a way of defending it or explaining it to people.
But could you three work together in order to establish so we know when that is and when it can be, and okay, and then Karen will share it with me for an agenda item.
And Karen, it's going to have to be before November 1st, because that's when you expect to set the tax rate.
Well, I threw that out as a date.
Yeah.
We're looking for a date.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about past history, roughly when that might happen.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not trying to nail you down, Karen. You're always very good at.
But Steve, let's get this timeline. By November 1st, 2 elected bodies need to make a financial decision on how much money they are going to retain. That decision needs to be made in public, is what Diane is asking, in front of this committee so they can discuss the impact of what the tax rate will be, so they can advise their elected officials as to what they would like them to do with the surplus money that could be used to offset the potential increase if there is one. So if in only 15 days you have that open window, that means that meeting needs to happen real quick.
That's right.
It does. Okay, so we know what our assignment is. Both of you have information to share. Who wants to go first on this? Tom, do you have a lot? Or do you have a lot? I don't know.
No, basically, everything I had was pretty much summarized on the revenue revision page. We did have a calculated fund balance of $334,000, and the board voted to retain $200,000. You'll remember that this is not cumulative. We start at 0 each year, so that's $50,000 more than we retained last year.
Do you want to hand that so we just have it?
Well, shoot, this is a history.
Right. That 300 and some odd thousand, last year, did we have any additional warrant articles to put into the trust funds?
No, we did not. There was nothing voted from surplus last year.
Okay, all right. And can you explain, because I forget every year, the $200,000, how that is affected into your budget for this coming year? Where does
It
the,
reduces the amount to be raised by taxes. But the 200 is retained.
it's retained, does that show up in your?
It's just on the balance sheet.
It's on the balance sheet? Okay, and you can just retain it, and that's for emergency purposes.
We have to have permission from the Department of Ed to spend it.
And at one time, we were told that it is unclear to what it can actually be used for. I mean, they really,
Well, one of the classics is there's, hypothetically, we may run short of monies in special ed tuitions, just for sake of argument. And rather than going to a deficit appropriation,
right.
because we have to spend that money, we could petition the Department of Ed to allow us to use those retained funds. But it has to be for a specific purpose, specific amount, and approved by the Department of Ed.
And one of the reasons why you were deciding to retain the $200,000 is because there is you're anticipating a huge increase in residential placements, correct?
The potential is there.
Okay.
We did not increase the budget, the operating budget, as much as our calculations indicated we perhaps should.
Okay,
So
so
we're
that's,
conservative with the budget and trying to be conservative with
Yeah,
retained
no,
funds.
good.
isn't that the reason? I mean, I've been hearing that.
Could be the reason.
Could be, yeah.
And typically it is.
And it has been, we've seen a
Yes, it
big
has.
increase in that in the last couple of years. All right.
And also this year, we did not retain anything, did not add anything to capital reserve funds.
Right.
Yeah, so that's another, in previous years, it's been about $80,000.
And have you tapped into the
Yes.
reserve fund for the special
We've been-
education?
Not for special ed, no,
And how much do you have in that
about
reserve?
150,000.
150,000.
So that theoretically can take care of one kid.
Yeah, one,
Well,
not,
yeah, I know.
not even.
I just want to get all the numbers out on the table so people understand.
No,
So we have
that's
150,000 in a reserve account, you're retaining an additional 200,000 that can be used for a variety of reasons, but most likely.
approval.
With approval. But
Restricted
it
usage.
could possibly be because of a residential placement. I'm just trying
That's
to
good.
recap it, okay?
How about the school board? Because the school board, last couple of years, has spent a lot of money with architects and engineers and stuff like this. I mean, that was a huge amount of money that you went to without having the public knowing it. And I want to know if that's back in the board doing the same type of a thing. If you got it in your drawing board to spend architects, engineers, all these other things that you guys seem to have done within the last couple of years, that's a huge amount of money that you guys have done. And I want to know if that's on the drawing board this time.
It is not.
Is not nothing?
Actually, we had an article to spend some money, and the article was defeated. And under state law, no means no, so we are stopped from pursuing that for this year.
But you did spend a lot of money without people's approval.
It
So.
was within the other appropriations, yes.
Okay, so are we done, Mr. Mangus? Is that it? Does
The other
anyone
piece
else?
I might suggest is on the history, it shows the amounts that have been retained over the years since we got the authorization, and no monies have been drawn from that at any time yet.
And any other questions for the school from anybody? Anybody?
Mr. Thompson. So of the sheet, the first sheet you handed out, the only number that would change at the bottom would be the valuation and the tax impact?
Yes.
You have that from the town, everything else is.
Yeah, the big number is $469,000 less taxes I need to raise because of another revenue source.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Andrew and Karen, anything?
Yep.
I think you were looking at these.
I wish. Don't you?
I know we don't have enough for everybody here because I intended to give these to the budget committee, so.
Okay, Millie and I'll share.
Yeah.
She just wants to take it.
No.
These were to the budget committee, but anyone beyond that, there's 10 of us. And I emailed you yours.
Do you want one? Oh, thank you. You're welcome.
So, this is a proposed draft of the proposed and default budget. Very beginning stage of it. We know that there's going to be some additional cuts from this. But just to summarize, you wanted to know where we're at on page 2 and the back side of page 2, which is 3. There is your budget summary with the year-to-date expenditures as of September 30th, 2019. If you look just below the total budget under the year-to-date expenditures, the actual percentage of where we're at is 71%. So we're very close to our mark. There's usually a couple bills, of course, that don't come in till the later month or the later part of the next month, electric, phone, etc. So we're very close to what we have budgeted.
Are you year-to-date, is as up to date as they normally are?
Yes. It's September 30th.
Oh, you mean as far as all invoices?
Yeah, that's right. This is our typical benchmark, so
Yeah.
3 quarters of the year and 71%, so there's a 4% window for some end of year
Right.
extra expenses.
So our difference between our default that we proposed, if you look at the summary, and on this page 3 of 42, line 37, our difference is 1.94% from the default to last year's budget. So that's factoring in any increases in pay that had been put into last year's budget, any contractual increases that need to be in here, and any one-time expenditures that have been pulled out. And as you go through each individual page, you're going to see the detail on that. So the difference between the proposed 2020 and the 2019 approved at this time, that is 4.86%. We know we need to look at these numbers again. When we combine everything together, we know we need to. The difference between the 2020 proposed and the 2020 default is 2.86%. So,
Okay, so this is for the operating budget,
yes,
and the town is always has quite
Warrant
a few
articles.
warrant articles. Do you have any negotiations that are in process?
we're in process with 2 union negotiations. We just started meeting.
And we have one on the school
Support
side,
staff.
the support staff. So we have 3 contracts, employee contracts that will be negotiated this year and presented if everyone comes to an agreement, presented to the voters. So just keep that in mind too. We don't have any facility at this point. Do we have a facility proposal or property proposal at this point?
Not yet.
No, is not yet mean no, totally?
Yeah.
Or just not yet?
Just not yet.
Okay. All right.
Could
And-
happen before next spring's meeting.
I would like to think so.
All right, and do we have any other pilot agreements being negotiated that could,
No, I mean, there's always utility trials that are going on, so I know we have one going on with PSNH right now. That's been going on, I think, since 2011. So at some point, there could be a mediation or a settlement or a court ruling, and who knows which way that'll go, so.
there was a wild rumor on Main Street that there was some renegotiations with the hospital pilot. Is that a wild rumor?
No, you know, the pilot itself has some trigger points in it, as far as like, you know, if a certain type of, a certain portion of the property is developed in a certain way, then there's actually triggers to increase valuation.
That hasn't been looked at, but it might be something that, we need to look at with them. We have been working closely with the hospital in discussions about EMS, and as far as partnering with them as much as we can. They have a lot of interest in having us work with them on that and saying,
So just for my own purpose of understanding our pilot agreements, so we have a value of, for the North Hydro, whatever it's called, $177 million, and they pay how much per year?
A little over 4 million.
A little over 4 million.
4 million.
4,600,000.
4 million, about 60,000.
Yeah.
Okay, 4 million, okay. And for the hospital, what is the value of the hospital and what is their pilot agreement?
Their pilot 75,000.
No, they have 75,000, but there's like a cost increase, annual cost increase, and they may be in the 80s now. I'd have to look and see specifically, but their value 20, 30 million. I mean, we haven't done an actual valuation because they're in a pilot.
It would be interesting to see what the percentage is for what the dam pays and what the hospital pays.
Yeah, and they're different. The one thing to consider is they're also different type of property. So one is an actual commercial property, and the other
one's a utility.
Yeah, their utility, and then the hospital itself. This all came about because hospitals and not-for-profits weren't taxed, and the state. I don't remember if it was a court ruling or if the state passed a law that said you have to actually show a percentage of charitableness. And so we had to go through. This was going on back in 2015. Even like the Boy Scouts of America, for example, their property in town, they had to come in and demonstrate, what percentage of the time is used for charitable use of their property. And so the same thing with hospital. And so hospitals across the state started doing pilot agreements with the communities that they're in. And so it's understood that there is a portion of the hospital that is not necessarily charitable. It's for making a profit, or not making a profit, but not-for-profit, not charitable activity. And so the pilot is really the agreement to settle something in between there.
Because I guess what I've heard on that arrangement, and I know that we can't task you to go and start renegotiating, but for the hospital to have a $30 million, $40 million value, and then we have local businesses in the area that, have a good valuation, a high valuation, and they're paying substantially more. They're substantially less in value, but they're paying substantially more in taxes. And I understand what you're saying there, but it just seems like there's a big discrepancy.
I would say actually, so Mr. Hadlock, this was already, I think, almost finalized in this negotiation when I started in 2015. And Mr. Hadlock had just brought to my attention that, there are other pilots out there in the state, and maybe take a look and see what they're doing. There are other pilots to look at, and they're interesting, and I think each community is different, but that might be something that, I couldn't educate you on it because it gets very complicated.
It does.
We need a consultant and an attorney to fill it out.
Okay.
And the pilot with the hospital is a 10-year pilot, so 2015 it was signed. I don't know if 2016 was the first year of it. Karen, do you remember? So we're talking 2026 before that pilot, unless one of the triggers were met inside of it, would be in place. So.
And who actually monitors that?
So we have a pilot. I have a pilot monitoring contract that I just created. So, and I have a technical specialist who will be reviewing not just the one with the Great River Hydro, but also with the hospital, and just look at it and make sure that everybody's in compliance with it.
Audit.
We were laughing about just a drive-by valuation. We don't want a drive-by of the hospital. So, anyways, okay, those questions have been brought to me from other people. So I just wanted to make sure that we're looking at that as well.
I mean, I have been approached by other companies about pilots that ones who are thinking about constructing something in the community. But those are, I don't know if the statute even is on it. Those are so far out. But,
okay. Anything else, Karen?
Well, I was gonna have you take a look at the revenues, which is page 4. Year to date, if you look at the middle column, we're about 55%. A lot of our revenues come in December. So, and of course with billing, it's usually billed twice a year between the state property, the town property tax and the sewer tax. So you're a little off on those numbers, but it is 55% as of right now. If you look at the revenues which impact taxes, you're going to see a big jump in the MS column, the 2019 MS 434, and that is basically the pilot that has jumped in that calculation. And I've continued it in the 2020 proposed and the 2020 default. Then you've got your budgets. I don't think you wanted to go over each individual budget, but
Not tonight.
I do.
I felt
Millie does, she says.
No, but it's nice that you do, then you just take a moment, skip through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now remember, there are some changes that are coming. The default, I think we're pretty close to where we need to be on that. I don't foresee anything changing in that.
So I guess we're probably pretty well set for tonight. We just have a date to set to go over some of the more solid numbers between the school and
Okay,
the
so I'll
town.
coordinate a meeting with
Yeah.
Andrew and Steve
Mhm.
when
Yeah.
we have.
And Ann.
But,
and-
yeah, but I mean,
Oh, it's
those
like
meetings,
Franklin's
and
right there, so,
numbers people, we're gonna,
yeah.
I mean, have to have that meeting in no later than sometime this week. Right.
Sometime, yeah, as soon as possible before November 1st. So I think we're all just kind of like deer in headlights right now with all these numbers.
Yeah, but that's every year though. We have to have this.
Yeah, we have this. It's hard to understand, get our wheels re-greased.
The juice is flowing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I make another comment?
Yes, you may.
If you don't mind? Actually, I've got another handout
Okay.
that I did for the budget committee. I know I made some extra copies here. I just wanted to let you know that the New Hampshire retirement system rate in the budget has been reduced. The police department is down 0.50%. Fire department is down 0.90%. Employees is down 0.11%. So there is a little bit of decrease there.
Second year in a row.
Workers' comp, there's no increase in that, none predicted. Unemployment insurance, we actually have a reduction in the proposed because over the past few years, there's been very few people filing for unemployment. So we do see a savings there. I'm estimating a 3% increase in property liability insurance. And that is only in the proposed because I cannot do it in the detailed budget. Health insurance, our plans only went up.
Steve, can you, Steve?
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Our plans only went up 2.2%. That is a very, very small increase.
That's remarkable.
Most towns, they told me, in our size, actually increased 7%. Ours only increased 2.2%.
And what's that income?
And health insurance, our health insurance costs.
Yeah, I was going to ask on the school side, because that's usually a big driver too in increasing in the budget.
We won't know until middle of November probably.
So you don't know at this
But
point?
what we find out in November will be the renewal rates. We don't do the guaranteed maximum rate anymore.
Okay,
It will be the actual rates when we get them.
okay. That's good because that really, that helps in the budget process, yeah. All right.
We included what the cost split is for health insurance for each one of the unions and the expected We are actually moving the non-union. It's going to see a 2.5% increase to their share of the health insurance, both the high deductible and the low deductible plan. So they're going to see an increase in that.
So the high deductible and low deductible, do they still pay the same percentage?
No.
Okay, can you explain that?
Non-union pays currently for the low deductible plan, the employee shares 15%. For the high deductible, the employee shares 7%. The plan, as of right now, on non-union, we're going to be increasing the employee share to 17.5% on the low deductible and to 9.5% on the high deductible. That's going to save roughly about $8,000 a year. It's not a huge savings, but it's absorbing the increase a little more than the increase that the insurance went up.
Right.
And if you remember, I think it was the last year, we actually switched, or the year before, we switched to different health insurance plans that were actually, even though the percentages, I think we moved the percentages share lower, but we were still saving money. And so that's why the percentages themselves don't look like, maybe a 20% and something higher. We were able to.
Propane prices for 2019, we got $1.55 per gallon. For 2020, we got $1.40 per gallon. Oil prices for 2019, we got $2.52. This should say 2020. I apologize. It's $2.21 per gallon. And we expect no change in electric. We have not heard of any increase. Last year, we had heard it was going to go up 11% and factored that in our budgets.
Right.
It did go up.
It did go up, yeah.
So that's just an overview of a few things that helped build the budget.
Right. Gets us going.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you. And anything else, Steve?
No, that's good. I'm glad we had this meeting because I would hate to not have had it and then have all this just end up coming out in the newspaper.
Steve, can I ask a question? John Q. Public.
John Q. Dale.
Was that April meeting that we referenced regarding the pilot program, was that videotaped and was that done in public session? So some of the clarification can be for the taxpayer, not just for us here. We heard both sides, but if I'm a taxpayer that's not at this meeting and I hear that there was one statement made towards the school district or one granted statement made, and then that's not followed, that questions the trust of leadership, in my opinion, or the trust of how it was presented. Secondly, if that does stay in effect and the school district increases $3 and change, I would recommend that the budget committee recommend to the town that their rate must go down the same amount and not have a chance to increase and make the school district look worse than what they are. If it's going to be even keel, they're going to take the proceeds at this time.
We want the tax bill to be representative of what actually is happening operationally. That we don't want the tax bill to be skewed, if you would, by by the numbers, if you would, and how the revenue stream works. I mean, something has to be done so that the tax bill, either if you can't change the numbers, there needs to be a full explanation about what happened, why, and how.
The transparency.
So that it doesn't come out looking like the school's tax rate went up $3.
Well, I mean, we all go to deliberative session and we see that percentage on the rate at deliberative session, and taxpayer goes and says, well, you're going up $3. That equates to what we just figured out was what, $1.8 million? Can somebody justify a $1.8 million cut on the school side? We either were misled, which the videotape would prove right or wrong, whether the school district was misled or the town was misled. And that's all I want to clarify so that I can direct people to watch the video and they can make their own assessment.
Yeah. And as Andrew, as you expressed earlier, if we're a captive of the state system, that we at least need to then locally create an explanation so that,
And like I said before, I do have a call on, into Department of New Administration where we're just looking at, is there a way to make it equalized? Because I think we are making, I totally understand the school sensitivity because it will, potentially impact the school rates. Like your bottom dollar, I think is what people need to understand is like, what percentage you want it? Because this whole thing is pretty much net neutral. The money is still coming in, the same amount, maybe a little more, from this property. It's just how it is flushed through on a document called the MS1. So the tax rate, we're not making an artificially high tax rate now for the whole community. If I'm saying that nothing can be done about it, it's just that the amount of valuation that goes to both of us is reduced because of that, but the money still is coming in to offset the tax rate, so.
I don't disagree with that. I haven't lived here, what did you say, Steve, earlier, 40-something years, 47 years?
45. 45.
I've only been here 20 years, but unfortunately in this town, there's pro-town people, and there's pro-school people, and there's anti-school people, and anti-town people. So the anti-school people would obviously come out in droves at our budget, but when they say if it stays as it's been presented, a $3+ tax rate increase. And then we have to make cuts that, affect kids, affect programs. And I'm not speaking for the school board, I'm speaking as a public citizen that I've been here for 20 years to be able to say that.
I'd like to meet those pro-town people sometime.
You all have
Yeah.
But anyway, having said that, the objective is to make it fair and transparent, so we'll work on that.
We'll work on
Yeah,
it.
and
Our goal is to do that.
Yeah, and if need be, I'm sure Karen would too, I don't want to volunteer, but we would come to your meeting and show, what this pilot arrangement is to the voters at your meeting, so.
We all need to just communicate with each other and each other's groups of supporters and non-supporters. So, and I go back when we had to pay $6 million to the dam for the dam. It really just came. The number was more on the town side than it was on the school side. So over the years, each side has absorbed quite a bit have taken a few hits. Let's put it that way. So, but it's the communication that we all have to work on.
Just keep in mind, all payments for all settlements, all come from the town side, all on our tax rate, all of it, 100%. So over the years, also all the economic development activities actually bring in those additional, that's all here. We have such a broad array of duties at the town level to accomplish, and we absorb all of that too in our tax rate when things change, like a settlement with the utility company, or the other way, like a pilot as we're learning now.
One of the pieces of information that we've had in the past, and if we could get it again, is the increase, the tax rate base, or tax base, I should say, and the different categories and the percentages up and down, because at one time the utilities were sinking and the industrial, commercial areas of our community were increasing, and that is really good information for everyone to know, because we all work together, it all works together. So if we could have that, and if what perhaps maybe anticipated growth in our tax base, if we have any of that. I don't know if we do or don't, but some years we have a little bit of growth there.
Yeah. And whatever we do in those, I think we got to take what would have been either the old number or what would have been the new number under the old situation. Take that 800 whatever, subtract the pilot,
Backwards it is.
bring it down, so then you can say off what the old numbers would have been and what the new numbers are, how those are moving, so people can put it in perspective. We don't want them to have to do the $177 million adjustment in their head.
Sure.
So any of those charts that we do.
An imputed value, I think it's called.
Yeah. I'll buy that.
All right, I'm done.
Thank you. So the final comments, Shane and John and Mary, I hope we've got the discouraged.
Yeah, I'm gonna be,
Thank you very much, and we welcome you, and I'm sure
Yeah,
that
it's- all of
6
them
months
are
from
gonna
now,
be here.
we'll
Okay.
set
All of them are
it.
benefits and-
Thank you.